What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the second live stream. I hope you guys are having a great day so far. It is a beautifully sunny day here in Los Angeles, and it's a good day to read some scripts. So last stream I read, I don't know, like three scripts. I don't know how many I'm gonna get through today. My inbox is completely flooded with scripts right now. So I'm sorry if I don't get to your script in the next week or two or whatever, but I still think that these streams can hopefully be beneficial for you, because what I want you to be able to do, the goal at least, is for you to be able to take what I'm talking about and what I'm teaching and be able to apply it to your work without having to have me specifically read your specific script. So ideally, while you are watching these streams, hopefully you're able to kind of see what I'm doing and take notes and examples from other scripts and be able to apply that to your own writing. So that is the goal for today. And yeah, we will get right into it. So let's see here. So the first script that I want to read today is called Grave and the Cradle, written by Chris Davey. Let me move this over here. All right. You all should be able to see this just fine. All right. So this is the first one I wanted to read. This is about 10 pages long, 9 pages, pretty short. I think in general, I'm probably going to keep the length of these short scripts around 15-ish pages, just so that I feel like we can get through more of them that way, and so that we're not reading a 30-page script. I feel like it's a little bit easier to stay focused and give some more focused notes with something that is a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this. I am just taking a look at you guys, making sure you guys are all good. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Next stream, I'm trying to do streams weekly at this point. So ideally, I'm doing one every Wednesday going forward from here. So that's the goal. One every Wednesday, a stream for an hour, a couple hours, depending on how things go. And also, all of them will not be me just reading scripts. I also want to talk about talk to you guys and answer questions and just give more of my ideas about writing that I feel like I'm not able to always put in my videos. I feel like I talked about this some in the last stream, but that is what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to go ahead and how many scripts am I reading today? The goal is to read, I don't know. I mean, I may read, it depends on how much I have to talk about. Maybe I could read anywhere between 2 to 10, honestly. Like, it's hard to know. But I am going to go ahead and get into this one. And here we go. 1 second. All right. So, fade in. Interior, luxury penthouse, New York, 1967 night. Penny, 26, wearing a maid's uniform, hurries down a long hall nervously. She turns the corner and is caught by Francis, 63, in an extravagant dress. The tardiness is getting out of hand. I'm sorry, it won't happen again, I swear. For your sake, it better not. Let's get in there. People will be here any minute. They rush into another room and slam the door behind them. Interior, luxury penthouse, later. A cork pops and launches out a bottle of champagne. The lavishly large apartment is filled with mingling socialites, all closer to the grave than the cradle. Francis and Howard, 67, stand in the glow of the fireplace, drinks in hand. They both burst into laughter. You're very funny. Most men our age are too miserable to be funny. Howard gently touches her hand. They both lean into one another. You're a very beautiful woman. That's very forward of you. I mean it. Howard finishes the last of his drink. He laughs, almost loses his balance, and grabs the mantel for support. Maybe I've had too much to drink. I should call a cab. You sure you won't stay a little longer? I shouldn't make more of a fool of myself. Have breakfast with me then, tomorrow at 10. That sounds nice. They share a long, charged look. They both smile. Howard exits through the crowd. Frances continues to smile, but it fades. She looks around for a familiar face at the party, but finds nothing. Interior luxury penthouse, night. Penny rests on the couch as Frances closes the apartment door behind the stragglers leaving the party. You want to zoom in a little bit? Let me see if I can do that. Hopefully that's a little bit better for you. Cool. I thought they'd never leave. Frances grabs 2 glasses of champagne off a nearby tray and sits next to Penny, as she looks like she might fall asleep next to her. I'm getting too old for all this. Soon it's just going to be you and me. Too many late nights for your own good. Frances chuckles, rests for a beat. I heard people talking about me again. Stop it. You're being paranoid. Oh, what do you know? Frances gets up and walks over to the kitchen. I know you said you couldn't leave the mess for the morning, but I have a breakfast date, so I'll need the place tidy. It's just that my mom is at home watching my son. I don't want to keep her out so late. I'm sure she'll make do. But it just doesn't seem fair. No buts. I've already made enough exceptions for you. Don't think that because we're friendly that you can just do whatever you want. Penny restrains herself. You're right. I'm sorry. Frances abruptly drops her stern tone as if she was oblivious to the previous scolding. Good. You'll need to be here at 8 a.m. sharp. Now, what are we thinking for breakfast? It needs to be just right. I'll pick up a few things in the morning. That would be wonderful. You're too good to me, Penny. Okay, so 3 pages in. I'm not really feeling any sort of real dramatic push. I know the character of Frances wants to have breakfast with this guy she met at this party. But there's not a ton of narrative drive here. There's not a ton of desire to know what happens. But we're going to continue to read. Interior, exterior taxi, night. Plumes of exhaust billow out of a yellow taxi as it drives leisurely down the street. Penny sits in the back seat, her forehead pressed against the glass. She struggles to stay awake as the cab dips into darkness between streetlights. Interior, ratty apartment, lobby, night. Penny trudges up a rusty and formally extravagant spiral staircase. Interior, tiny apartment, night. Penny unlocks the door and opens it, revealing Mary, 60, trying to rock Joseph, 4, to sleep. Sorry I couldn't get him down. Penny takes Joseph from her. It's okay. Thanks for staying so late. Okay, sweetie. I love you. Try and get some sleep. Love you. Mary collects her purse and coat and exits the apartment. Penny takes Joseph into her room and closes the door behind her. Interior bedroom, night. Penny lays with her back to her bed frame. She holds Joseph and rubs his back as he falls asleep. Her head dips and her eyes get heavy. Interior bedroom, day. Penny lays sprawled out on the bed, dead asleep. Joseph lays beside her, inspecting her contorted face. Penny's body shuffles and then slowly rises. She looks over at the alarm clock. It reads 8:40 a.m. Shit. She jumps out of bed in a panic and tears through a pile of clothes in the corner. Joseph watches as each article flies through the air and lands on the bed. Interior, luxury penthouse, day. Frances stands in her living room wearing a nightgown. She stares frustrated at her watch and then at the door. She huffs. Fine. Frances walks into the kitchen and turns on the stove burner. Interior, exterior taxi, day. The taxi is at a standstill. Horns of cars blaring back and forth at each other. Penny sits in the back seat, anxiously tapping her feet and checking her watch. Finally, she pulls out a few bills, hands them to the driver, and bolts out of the cab. She tears down the city street in a desperate frenzy. Interior, luxury penthouse, day. Frances overlooks a beautifully decorated table and 2 plates of food. She nods with a glowing sense of pride. She covers the plates with silver serving lids. So, we're almost halfway through, and this is going very, very, very slowly. So, but let's analyze why we're moving slowly. What makes it feel slow? So the reason it feels slow is because we don't have any real stakes so far. We're halfway through this story and there's no real narrative stakes. We don't really care why these 2 people want to have lunch together. We don't really feel any sort of stakes for what's her name? Penny as she is trying to go back to this house to clean these dishes. So, one thing I talk about a lot, on my YouTube channel is Harmon's Story Circle and how you can use it to build narrative momentum. So let's talk about a couple things that are missing in this script, right? So we have a character we have Francis who wants to have lunch with this guy, right? And we also have the unfamiliar situation, where you could say that because Penny has missed doing these dishes, this is sort of an unfamiliar situation. But all this, again, like what I've talked about in the scripts that I read last stream, is this is all happening very late in the story. Like if you think about this as a larger story, as a story that was 100 pages long, essentially this would be your act 1 happening like halfway through the story, right? So all this sort of stuff should be happening, like we should be really moving by page 2.5 at best, like here or whatever. We should really be moving. And so and this is just the nature of a lot of writers will get into this habit where they're sort of in feature mode or pilot mode when they're starting their story, and then they have these massively long act 1s for a story that is only 10 pages long. So when you are shrinking a story down, or when you're making a smaller story, you need to think about where things are happening in time and in the pacing of your story. So when you are your story, for example, let's just say that we were going to use this idea here, right? If you're going to have a story like this, they should be having this lunch, for example, like here, page 3, maybe at the end of page 2. This should be, or not the lunch, the breakfast, or something like that, because it's also like that would be if Frances is the protagonist of this story, because at first it seemed like she was, but now it seems like we're focusing on Penny a lot. So we have this disparity in this very short script of like, who are we mainly focusing on? That's one thing I would fix, is to really focus on one of these two characters. And 2, if Penny is the protagonist of this story, then this whole thing of her being late or whatever, this should be happening page 3, beginning of page 3, halfway through page 3, whatever, because this is going to be the thing that starts moving the conflict forward. And this is what a lot of people struggle with in short scripts, is when you are writing something that is short, make sure you're not writing these super long act 1s. And like essentially when you're writing something this short, I mean, this really applies to larger stories as well, but every single, you need to be so economic about your pages. Every single line needs to be you need to really know kind of what's going on. Obviously, as you write like a first draft of a short, you can be more, you just write it. When that first draft, it's about getting it done, and then you have something to actually fix. But when you're going through that draft, you need to be thinking about, okay, what does this character want, and what's getting me to my unfamiliar situation? What's getting me into the catalyst to actually get the conflict of this story moving correctly? That's what you want to be doing. And so that's one of the reasons I recommend Dan Harmon's Story Circle so heavily, is because you can use it to build a scene. You can use it to build a short film or a short script so much better than something that is longer. For example, like if you want to take a great look at a way to do this well. So this is something I've recommended before. Watch a Rick and Morty episode and focus on just one of the timelines, because in every Rick and Morty episode, or almost every one, there's pretty much 2 timelines running. There's the Rick timeline, the main story, and then the B story is like usually something happening with the family, something happening with the husband or the wife or the daughter, and you have this little story. And what happens is, in those episodes, you end up having this like 11-ish, 12-ish page short script and this like 6 to 8 page short script that are both sort of running in tandem. And I really recommend that you look at those and see when they're really like picking up, when they're having the inciting incident or the catalyst, whatever you want to call it, the unfamiliar situation, when they're moving into the story world and getting going, because I guarantee you they're spending a couple pages at max in the beginning and then they're moving on. Now, obviously, if you're writing a standalone short script, in an episode, you have the luxury of the audience already knowing who these characters are, and then so you don't have to do all this setup of saying like this character is this and this character is this. But even in a short script that is a standalone thing, you can be economic. Find a way where you can tell the audience the important information about this character in one line of action or a couple lines of dialogue or this sort of thing. If you're able to actually do that, you're going to build something that's a lot stronger. So, I know that not everybody. I know. Okay, so I see some people asking if Rick and Morty is actually good or whatever. Rick and Morty is very stylized. I understand people who don't like it or who think it's like, irreverent, whatever you want to say. But the actual fundamentals of how that show works is actually very, very strong. So, whether or not the actual show in and of itself is your genre or your taste, the mechanics of how it's operating is very strong. And I think there's a lot to be learned about how to write short scripts from that show. So it's something I would definitely recommend. Let's see here. I may... So I'm going to go a little bit further and see if there's anything else. Okay, so 6, I just saw this. On page 6, we have this whole thing, I'm married. And this really, okay, she slams the phone down on the hook, looks back herself in the mirror. Okay, this is the sort of stuff that should happening way earlier, right? The lunch, this breakfast starts or whatever, this I'm married thing, this all is should be starting earlier in the story. Now, if I remember correctly, this, the Grave in the Cradle, let me check the email one more time because I'm pretty sure that this script, he said it was about like classism and about, this more poor woman who is working for this, a more rich woman. Let's see. Yes. Own struggles of class and isolation, forming an unconventional friendship. So that's not at all what I'm seeing in this script so far, right? Like I'm not seeing, we're so far into this. Okay, so we have this sort of I'm married note happen. Then after this, we have interior elevator day. Elevator rises. Penny attempts to collect herself. She gets to the apartment. Penny hesitantly walks into the living room. And so now they're going to have this argument, and I bet she's going to be like, oh, it's also about how this guy, okay, so she's refused to be treated this way. You're the most stuck-up, miserable woman. Let's see. I wanted this morning to be special. What happened? Okay, so here we go. This is exactly what I thought would happen. Now Francis is going to tell him that this guy ended up being married, and now they're going to be friends. And then it's done, right? So the very, very, very end of the story, we have this sort of moment where they become friends and this and that, right? But let me ask you this. If you built a version of this story that was super, 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 super economic in its use of pages, and you had this happen halfway through the story or on page 6, page 7, this sort of thing, I think you could then have this situation where, Frances gets what she wants. She has this friend now, but then she pays for it. Something else happens. If you're going to actually make this story about, a class situation like you said you wanted to, let's actually see them become friends, and then for some sort of class reason, they can't be friends, or it's weird for them to be friends, or something like this. And I know you may think, oh, this isn't possible in a script that is 9 pages long or even 8 pages long, but I think it is, and I think it would be good for you to try, because I do think there's fat even in this 9-page script that you could absolutely cut. There's arguments you don't need to have, the whole sort of argument about doing the dishes before you leave, these things to be cut, shortened, this sort of thing, to really get into the meat of this story. And so like this is one of the reasons. I mean, one of the reasons I am not looking at full features on these live streams is because looking at a full feature would be super boring. It would just be me reading 100 pages over 3 hours and trying to talk about it, and it just would not work. But looking at these short scripts, I think, is actually really good because we can take a look at narrative momentum. We can take a look at actually trying to be economic. I really, really, really recommend, if you didn't watch the last live stream, there was a script. I think it was, I can't remember, but it was the second script. It's probably halfway through the live stream where I came across a really, really strong short script. And they get into the action like midway through page 2. It was exactly what I'm talking about. They really got through this narrative pump. And I was really, really happy to see that. And it was a great example of doing a short script right. Because short scripts are very hard to do right. It feels like they'd be easier because they're shorter, but the reality is you really, really have to know and understand narrative momentum, philosophical conflict, characters, and actually making decisions in a way that creates this narrative flow and makes a change in the beliefs of characters. It can be very difficult. And, again, like if you haven't looked much at philosophical conflict, I really recommend watching. I think it's a fairly new video I just put out about the purpose of conflict and how to create story conflict. Both of those videos I think would be very, very helpful to you in actually getting that figured out. Zach Johnson is saying that I should analyze professional scripts to say why they're good. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I'll do that at some point soon. I might even grab, see if I can find some Pixar short scripts and talk about why they work. But the funny thing is most, so let me pull this up. So there's a website called shortoftheweek.com, and let me show you this. So this is shortoftheweek.com. This is just a website that showcases these different scripts. And I mean, I recommend that you check this website out. It's a cool website. There is some cool stuff here. They have all sorts of short films from 2 minutes all the way to like 23, 30, even like 50 minutes, something like that. And they also have different, I think it's in channels. Yeah, so in channels they have documentary, animation, sci-fi, comedy, and then they have a whole big list of different scripts here. But the reality is most of the scripts, narrative-wise, story-wise, are not good, even on this professional website. And so short scripts are very, very hard to do well. And the people that can do them well are writing TV. And so, like maybe I'll look at a short TV episode, like a 22-minute episode of something, to give some ideas on how to write short scripts better. Let's see. Let's see here. Can I put it in the description? Yeah, I can do that real quick. Let's see. Short of the week. Let me just throw this in here really quick. Okay. All right, I'm putting in shortoftheweek.com. If you guys want to check out this website, it should be now in the description. So anyways, we're going to get back to reading scripts. Let's see. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. So this script is The Final Word by Matthew Kudzin. This is another pretty short one. Here we go. So this is another pretty short one called The Final Word by Matthew Kudzin. And let's go ahead and get into this one. So, interior room day. Chris, 30s, buff and handsome, stands in the doorway, arms crossed, a stoic image of cool masculinity. Kevin, 20s, short and scrawny, stands in front of him. Kevin's respect for Chris is palpable. Thank you for your service, sir. Hey, Kevin, call me Chris. With honor, Chris. I would cut the hey, Kevin there. Beat. The honor is all mine. Or hey, Kevin, yeah, okay. Chris turns around and starts walking out the door. Chris stops and turns around. You give him hell. Hey, Kevin, and beat. You got it. Chris gives a casual salute as he turns around and starts walking out the door. Kevin gives a formal military salute. Good luck out there. Chris stops and turns around. Wish some luck. Why? Chris grins. They need it. Chris turns around and keeps walking. He then stops and turns around. You're a good friend. As a great man once said, it takes one to know one. Chris grins. If you thought he was great, you should see him now. Chris turns around and keeps walking. Hey, Chris. Chris stops and turns around. See you around. Beat. Not if I see you first. Chris starts to turn around. Chris? Yeah? Chris does not wait for an answer. He turns around and keeps walking. Chris? Chris stops and turns around. Yeah? Beat. Right back at you. Chris smiles. Chris turns around and keeps walking. Unprompted, Chris stops walking and turns around. Kevin says nothing. Chris turns around and keeps walking. Can I make a confession, sir? Chris stops and turns around. That's Chris to you. Okay, Chris. Chris turns around and keeps walking. Can I make a confession, Chris? Chris stops and turns around. He smiles gently. Anything for you, buddy. I really look up to you, and I want you to know that I value our friendship. That means more to me than you could know. As a great man once said, it takes one to know one. Sounds like a pretty great guy. Yeah, beat. He is. Chris turns around and keeps walking. Wait, Chris. Chris stops and turns around. Don't go. I have to go. The people need me. They don't need you to die. Oh, don't they? Chris turns around and keeps walking. No, they wouldn't ask that much of you. Chris stops and turns around. It's okay, Kevin. I've accepted my fate. Well, I won't. Face the music, kid. Chris puts his hand on Kevin's shoulder. It's catchy stuff. Chris turns around and keeps walking. Sir? Chris stops and turns around. That's Chris to you. I love you. Good. The world could use more love. Chris turns around and keeps walking. Chris stops himself and turns around. Hey, okay, so I think we get it. It's pretty funny. It's a funny concept. It feels more like an SNL skit. But you know, I think it's at this point, like, you know, there's a reason I think I stopped around page 5. Page 6 isn't. Let's see, really fast. Okay. So actually, I was right before. So this is kind of good. So now we're heightening. So I think this is good. I mean, this is more comedic, and less of like a straight narrative, which is, you know, it's a bit more of a sketch than it is like a short narrative, which is fine. It's just different. It sort of follows different rules. So this is good because you're heightening the joke at this point. You're putting a gun at Chris, shoots Chris. And then now it's just about continuing to take this joke to the next level, and it's still working. Like, this is the SNL sort of Key and Peele type of sketch. This is what this feels more like rather than a narrative. So I like it. I like the idea. I think it's all right. I'm not as much. I haven't studied and tried to write very much comedy. So, you know, like, I think it was pretty funny to me. Like, and I think a lot of it is in the acting of it, like really selling it. Like, I can almost imagine Key and Peele really selling these two characters and giving you that kind of feeling back and forth. But I like the joke. I think it's funny, and you definitely sort of have to heighten it into absurdism, which you do sort of on page 6. So I think that works. It ends on page 8. It's pretty short. Overall, I think this is, it's pretty funny. I like it. And I think if you had the actors and also some like editing to really hit this, I think that a lot of this is in the execution of it and a little bit less on the page. But I like what it is, and I like where it's going, and that sort of thing. One of the things I wanted to talk about actually then I saw a couple of people talking about this in the comments just now. Is I think somebody was sort of talking about what I my channel and kind of what I talk about, and if it's like generic and these sorts of things. And I think that on the YouTube channel, like I talk a lot about fundamentals of storytelling, but I've tried to do so in a very practical way that is actually beneficial. So I think that my mic is falling on me. I think that my time in film school and my time studying writing and reading different screenwriting books and all this sort of stuff, I felt like there was a lot lacking. Like I felt like there wasn't a lot that was very clear on sort of how to actually sit down and write and apply some of these concepts. And so on my channel, I think I've talked a lot about these sort of fundamentals and how to build these fundamentals so that you can actually take something away from it as a writer and actually write. And so, for me, I'm very early in my, goals as a screenwriter and these sorts of things. Right now I'm working on rewrites for a production company here in Los Angeles. I'm trying to get a script sold to them right now that they're very interested in. And, so I'm very, very new in my understanding of writing and in my time as a screenwriter and somebody who likes screenwriting and believes in screenwriting. But what I felt was that there was a lot of things that were not being talked about specifically. Like this is why I talk constantly about philosophical conflict, because I think it's the most important element of a story, and I think it's very, very, very rarely ever actually spoken about in film school, like clearly, or in books clearly, and actually understanding that great story, like the reason that great stories work at the most fundamental level is their understanding of philosophical conflict, which essentially is beliefs that characters hold, and then different characters hold different beliefs, and then those beliefs come into conflict. And actually understanding that is what drives your narrative structure, that is what drives so much about how your story works. I think this is something that I have been frustrated a lot when people talk about formulaic movies. I think people talk a lot about, the Marvel movies are bad because they're formulaic or this and that. And the Marvel movies aren't, they're mediocre movies, but the reason that they're not these like beautiful, great pieces of literary work is not because they're formulaic. The reason that they are, mediocre is because they aren't dealing with any real philosophical conflict on a more mature level, right? So when you are young, when you're a kid, you're first learning about stories, you're watching cartoons, you're reading bedtime stories, these sorts of things, right? You're listening to the story about the knight who goes off and kills the dragon, right? These stories are about being courageous in the face of danger and, going out, getting what you want. Very simple concepts, right? And these are great for us, like when we're young, these are great because they give us this sort of baseline understanding of how the world works and how we're supposed to operate inside the world. And that's the point of storytelling. The point of storytelling is not to just be entertaining. Like that's an offshoot of storytelling. But the real point of storytelling, the reason it exists as like an element of human psyche, is because it gives us examples of people figuring out how to operate in the world. And when we align with a story, when we align with the story's belief systems that they're trying to portray, then that story aligns with us and we can use that story to better our lives, to be courageous and fight our own dragons and these sorts of things. But when we end up getting older, usually we end up needing to have more complex philosophical conflicts and more, gray or more nuanced philosophical conflicts. This is why stories like Sicario, I think, work, is because Sicario is working with this nuance where there's not just good and bad, there's the, how do you actually act? Are there ways that you can act that are bad, even if you're fighting for good? And what is good and what is, and even down to like, it's sometimes not even about stopping criminals, but about controlling them and just being aware of what's going on and these sorts of things. And so you can get these more interesting philosophical conflicts in these more sort of mature or adult stories, whatever you want to call them. And that is the point of storytelling. And as you grow up, like these like great literary works throughout history, books, novels, these sorts of things have dealt with complex philosophical conflicts. And so if you refer these back to films like the Marvel films, a lot of them are just not dealing with conflicts that are interesting to a mind that is more philosophically mature. So, and it's not that they're not fun watches, it's that like the reason that you have these like, scarf wearing, thick rimmed glasses film school guys talking about like, oh, that movie is so formulaic, I shall watch my A24 film to find true philosophy, or whatever they say. Like, the reason they're actually ignorant as to how stories work and what the point of stories is. The Marvel movies are not bad because they're formulaic. Structure is integral to good storytelling. And the reason that a lot of A24 movies are bad is because they lack any sort of narrative structure whatsoever. I don't hate all A24 movies. There's a lot of them I like, and I'm not bashing A24 necessarily. But I'm talking about that style of filmmaking, this sort of indie type of filmmaking where it's just all about like the feeling and spontaneity and this and that. And like the reality is that these are not deeper because you can't understand them. Honestly, like if you can't it is my belief that if you cannot understand a story, if you cannot understand a screenplay, a movie, a novel, a film, short, whatever it is, then in some way the writer may have failed, or the storyteller may have failed, because it's not about being oddly ambiguous and these sorts of things. The idea is to actually take clear philosophical conflicts that are complex and interesting to a mature mind, and then correctly, with good structure, put those into a story. And that is extremely difficult to do, and this is why so many people go to one of two extremes. They make movies that are very black and white. These are the good guys, these are the bad guys, good guys win, we go home, it was a fun story, it had cool CGI. And you go to the other side where it's just like complete chaotic nonsense, where nothing really makes any sense. There is no narrative structure, there is no real philosophical beliefs behind the story, and you just have these hodgepodges of stories that 19-year-old film school guys like to say that we're so deep and they got it and you didn't, and you're just stupid because they didn't get it. If you ever watch a movie and you don't get it, you're probably not the stupid one. Like, just use that as a metric. And if you're watching a movie with people and you can't get what this weird movie is telling you, and then someone else is like, oh, see how deep that was? Think that they're probably lying to you because they don't actually get how stories work. And so this is the issue that I've found all over YouTube and screenwriting books and film school and all of this different stuff, is that nobody understands how to actually incorporate philosophical conflict, incorporate beliefs, and these sorts of things onto characters, which then creates the character conflict, and then into the narrative structure, which then creates the narrative structure of the story. And I think when you can actually get this done, that's how you can have stories that are actually great and fascinating. One story that I absolutely recommend you could watch, actually in a video I'm working on right now, I'm talking about this movie, is Wind River. The script was written and directed by Taylor Sheridan. And it is an extremely simple plot. It is not that complicated, but he focuses heavily on the characters, and he focuses heavily on what the characters believe. And this is what makes the film really, really strong. And he's also the same guy who wrote Sicario. So this guy, he's pretty good at, at writing actual philosophical conflict. And so, No, okay. So you're saying mixing purposefully scrambled. No. It's not about purposefully scrambled story structure. It's not. The issue happens is where these writers don't have a clear grasp on what they're trying to say in a story, but they know they want to have a unique story structure. And so it ends up creating these stories that are not strong at their core, thematically, philosophically, these sorts of things. And so that is what I encourage you to focus on. I don't encourage people to go out of their way to break like structural rules or principles, because these things are very superficial. They're not the deep core of your story. And this is why, let's see. No, Inception is very easy to understand. I don't understand. How do people not get Inception? The film was very, very simple. Let's see. Let me pull this up real quick. One moment. So I'll get to the next script in just a second, but let me show you this real quick. This is why I've talked about this sort of stuff inside the practical screenwriting course, which on September 9th, quick plug, doing a sale. Actually, you can see it right over here on the, right here. I'm doing a sale for the course on September 9th for a year anniversary. And I talk about these rewriting ideas in here, about starting with the core elements of your story, which is the philosophical stakes, and then moving upwards from that into your characters, into your structure, and these sorts of things. So that is what I have focused heavily on my channel and in the course and these sorts of things, and this is what I think you should be focusing on too, right? I really, really, really recommend that you save your desire to break structural principles for a time where you have an extremely good grasp on philosophical conflict. I think that is the time that you do that. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent, but I think a good one. And let's go ahead and get into the next script. So this script is called Waiting Poolside. And let's go ahead and get into this one here. Okay. So, this is Waiting Poolside. Fade in. Exterior poolside day. The water is still, waiting for someone to disturb it. The hot Florida sun beams down on it, almost creating steam. We pull back from the crystal blue water to reveal Mark, 19, athletic body, beautiful long hair, standing at the edge of the pool, ready to jump in. He takes a couple of deep breaths and then jumps. The water becomes disturbed, splashing everywhere, waves rippling to the other end of the pool. Title card, Waiting Poolside. Mark immediately emerges from below, not waiting for the water to calm. He wipes the water from his eyes and moves his drenched hair away from his face. Suddenly, he hears the opening of a gate from behind him. We quickly pan away from Mark to reveal Justin, 19, skinny, nerdy look, struggling to close the gate behind him. Justin keeps trying to pull the gate all the way closed, but it won't slip into the lock. After a few frustrating tries, Justin decides to just wait and let the door close itself. The door swings and locks into place. Justin smiles, satisfied that he decided to wait. We follow Justin as he walks over to the lounge chairs, laid out in a single row on the poolside. Justin scans each chair, not sure which one he wants to pick. After passing all of them, he finally decides to drop his towel and his phone on the one at the end. He fixes the towel, takes off his flip-flops, and turns towards the pool. He slowly inches away towards the edge. He stands there nervously staring at the undisturbed water. Do it. Justin looks up and sees Mark, standing at the other end of the pool, leaning against the wall. Justin is immediately enraptured by Mark's appearance. He admires his glistening muscles and wavy hair. Justin snaps himself out of it. I think I'll wait. Why? The water is not going to come to you. Justin looks at the undisturbed water one last time. He takes a couple of deep breaths and then backs away slowly from the edge of the pool. Back to safety, back to comfort. Oh, come on. We follow Justin as he walks around the edge and towards the other end of the pool, where the stairs are. He grabs onto the handle and slowly brings himself into the water. His feet touch first. He slowly walks down each step, the water slowly becoming higher. He keeps moving forward until the water is up to his neck, and then he finally submerges. The water is barely disturbed by this action, almost like nothing happened. After waiting for the water to turn completely still, Justin emerges. He wipes the water from his eyes and fixes his hair. He smiles, satisfied that he decided to wait. Justin then pulls his legs up and spreads out his arms. He floats peacefully in the water. Can you show me how to do that? Justin pulls his feet down to the ground and looks over to Mark, still in the same spot against the wall. What, to float? Yeah, I could never do it. Sure. Mark swims over to Justin and gets close to him, almost touching noses. They lock eyes. Justin looks right at us, yearning to take action. Or probably yearning. He wants to get closer. He wants to embrace him, but his body doesn't move. He stays there too scared, always too scared. After a few intimate moments, Mark decides to finally speak. Just grab onto me. Justin grabs onto his shoulder and his back. He pushes him down with one hand and pushes him up with the other. Mark's feet go up. Mark holds out his arms and starts flailing, trying to stay afloat. I can't do this. Justin holds onto his back, feeling his body tense up. Just relax. Stay relaxed, wait, and let the water come to you. Mark stops flailing and lets the water come to him. After a few calming moments, Justin feels Mark's body relax. Justin lets go and leaves Mark to float peacefully in the water. Justin watches him grinning. Justin watches him grinning. Justin pulls up his feet and holds out his hands. Justin and Mark float together for a few peaceful moments in the middle of the pool. Oh, shoot. Mark slowly pulls his feet down to the ground and looks over to Justin, still floating. Wow, thank you. No problem. A few moments of Mark intimately staring at Justin. I want you to dive into the water now. Justin lets go and pulls his feet down to the ground. What? You taught me how to float. I'm going to teach you how to dive. Okay, fine. Justin swims over to the stairs and walks out of the pool. We follow Justin as he walks around the poolside and to the other end. Justin reaches the edge and stares at the still water nervously. I can't do this. Mark is floating at the other end of the pool, enjoying his new learned trick. You just have to go for it. Justin takes a couple of deep breaths and then pulls one foot out. He holds it over the water. Justin is finally taking the first step. Mike is finally waiting. Justin leaps. Cut to black. We hear the splash of the pool water. Exterior poolside, 1 hour later. Justin grabs his towel off the lounge chair and starts to dry himself off. He watches Mark walk past him, towards the gate, already dry. Justin can't wait any longer. He has to go for it. Hey, Mark turns around. Do you mind if I have your number? Sure. Justin smiles, satisfied that he didn't wait. Mark walks over and pulls out his phone. Justin pulls out his and shows his number. I wanted to ask every time I saw you around here, but I couldn't wait any longer. Me neither. Mark grins and finishes typing his number. We follow Mark as he turns around and walks towards the gate. He pulls the lever and opens the gate. Mark waits for Justin to walk past and exit. Mark follows and lets the gate close behind him. They start to walk down the path together. When they reach the end, they turn to each other. They give each other a wave and an intimate smile before parting ways. We pull away from the exit and slowly pan back to the completely empty poolside. Then we pan down to the water. The water is still, waiting for someone to disturb it. Roll credits. The end. Okay, so the first question, when you are going to take a look at something like this, is the so what question, right? So we have these two guys, they're at the pool, we sort of have this like waiting thing, a theme happening. Then Mark, I think it's, or Justin asks Mark for his number. End of story. This is sort of like this waiting idea. So the biggest problem with this is like there's no narrative drive whatsoever, right? Like there's no narrative mechanic drive that creates any sort of narrative momentum for this story, right? And this is the issue with not following any sort of story structure, because you create these stories that are essentially like one single level of tension or interest the entire time, and then they end up being boring or not that interesting. Like I'm assuming, like for me, probably page 4 or so is pretty much tuned out, right? And maybe you guys were the same. The issue comes down to not having any sort of narrative drive. And here, let's just... All right, I'm pulling it out again, boys. I am pulling it out again. We can just start with here, right? So when we're looking at this, let me make sure. Okay, you guys can see this fine. Great. So comfort zone. The comfort zone is this guy. Is it Justin? Yeah, Justin. He wants to ask Mark for his number, this and that, but he feels like he can't. So his need or desire is to ask this guy for his number. The unfamiliar situation is them talking, but the reality is they've talked before. And so it's very uninteresting that they're talking. And then we have this sort of sequence where all they're doing is sort of messing around in the water. So really what should happen to give this some sort of like dramatic flow is he should ask for this guy's number a lot earlier. So he gets what he wanted, asks for the number, but pays a price for it, right? So if we're going with this waiting theme, you could potentially go in a direction where you are like, maybe he does it too early or something. The whole waiting theme is kind of weird and odd, and I'm not 100% on there. But if we're just talking about this structurally, you want to create this cycle right here. You want to create this idea where your characters get what they want. So when you go into a short film, because this really has no real dramatic push. When you're going into a short film, you want to know immediately who's your main character, what is their want? What do they want in this story? It doesn't matter what they want. Even if you remove the philosophical conflict for now and just focus on the character having a want, you can just say, okay, what does this character want in this story? You need to know. And then how do you create an unfamiliar situation that forces them to really go after that want, right? Then you want to go into them getting what they wanted, preferably around the middle of your story, but you can really sort of do this at any point. And then they need to pay a price for getting what they want. Now, I know that there are writers right now who are watching the stream and are saying like, oh, this is so formulaic. How could you do this? How could you force a story to follow this sort of this structure? But the reality is, if you are not following a narrative structure, you get stories like this. You get stories that just sort of happen at this single point of narrative. To have any sort of narrative that has any sort of flow and momentum to it requires this ebb and flow of dramatic tension and want and going after your want, and a cost that creates this sort of newer situation that you then have to find out what you want in this new situation, right? This pattern is not just like, it wasn't invented by humans, it was observed. Does that make sense? Like, this is how our stories operate, where a character wants something, they go after that, but it costs them something. Like that sentence that I just said, that is just the sort of fundamental of how a story operates. And so when you can create the very fundamental idea of a character wants something, so they go after it, but it must cost them something, that gives you the fundamental core of a dramatic momentum, because you need this dramatic momentum to create any sort of dramatic tension and any sort of stakes. Because it doesn't matter what a character wants if it doesn't cost them anything, right? Like, let's say you have a story about a guy who wants $100 million. I think everybody would want $100 million, right? But if this person goes after that thing and suffers greatly for it, we get to understand who they are as a person, right? We begin to understand what they believe. What do they believe about what this money will do for them? What do they believe about themselves and why they want this money in the first place? What do they think they can do when they acquire this money? And what are they willing to pay the price for? What are they willing to sacrifice to get this massive big goal, this thing that they want? Okay. This is narrative momentum. And it is absolutely integral for you to put this into your stories, whether that is a feature, whether that's a novel, or whether that is a 5 to 10 page short script. These are very, very important. And so, hopefully, and I'm going to continue to hammer this, right? Like, this is something that you're just going to have to get used to. I'm going to talk about this because it's so important, right? Like, honestly, when you are learning the craft of writing, and everybody who writes on any level is continuing to learn, it is so important to understand these and actually get this idea in your head. Like, literally write a short script, write a 10-page short script, and then take this circle just for the exercise, right? If you think I'm a complete idiot, if you think structure doesn't matter, if you think it's so important to break all these structural rules, give me this one and grab a story circle like this. Grab a first draft of the script you've already written. Write out the draft first so you have something to work with. Then force your script into these ideas. Force your character to have a want that they have to go after. They get what they want. They pay for it. Get a story that does those things. And tell me if that is not a better version of what your first draft is. Like, it actually, because if you don't have it, like, part of building the emotion of a story, like, part of the reason that a story is not an essay, it's not a philosophical essay or a psychological essay or whatever, is because it has this emotional momentum to it. You are building emotion in your story. You're building your emotion through momentum, through structural momentum, through the beliefs of your characters. And that's actually a big, big thing. As you're, if you're going to, if you want to truly get an audience or reader to empathize with your characters in a story, to truly engage with your story, this requires your characters to have clear beliefs, and it requires you to have a narrative momentum for your story, because the audience is going to examine what your characters believe and then decide whether or not they align enough with those beliefs to follow that character to a certain extent. And so if you can get an audience or a reader to be philosophically involved in your story, that is how you get something that's really, really interesting. Again, I'm going to talk about Sicario in this way, where Sicario will sort of make you take a look at what you believe about morality and about taking down these massive criminal organizations, right? If you watch that movie, think about what the characters believe and think about who you agree with. And think about if the climax of the story or the end of the story is actually is how the world works, or if you see the world in a different way. If you're actually watching that movie, I think it would be very hard for you to not be philosophically involved in it. And I think that's really, really important. Like, even if you, let's see. Can you suggest a good film without conflict? I'm going to take the hard stance here and say that they don't exist. Human beings, we exist within conflict every single day. Conflict is an element of the human condition, right? Stories exist. You are a human being. We're getting real meta here. You are a human being, and stories exist within your experience, with your conscious experience as a human being. And that matters because stories are a reflection in some extent of the human condition and the human experience. And so this is why This is why stories without conflict are innately boring to a human being, because our lives are full of conflict. Our lives are full of sacrifices. Our lives are full of deciding what we want. Our lives are full of making choices that we want to make or making compromises that we don't want to make. Even if you have a very cushy, American life, even if you're super, super rich or whatever, you still have conflict. You have philosophical conflict. Everybody is struggling with the questions, like the big questions in the world, why are we here? Why do we exist? Why can we think? Is there a God? All of these larger questions. How do we operate in a world where we can't know everything for sure, where people have completely differing worldviews on all these sorts of things, right? All these sorts of things, they impact your understanding of the world, and they impact your understanding of storytelling. And that's a good thing, because that's why stories exist, right? And this is something that I want you guys to think about more, is that, when you're a writer, I don't want you to just think about you making some fun stuff for a few people to watch on a Friday night and then go home. Like, I think that if you really, really want to commit to writing, I think that you can really get to this point of like serious philosophical impact in people's lives. And I think that's a really, really cool thing, right? Stories allow us to not just like read philosophy books and these sorts of things, but they allow us to watch humans, or these like, versions of humans, or these like representations of humans, actually have to struggle with philosophy and actually have to struggle with what they believe in the real world. Watch Sicario. That is the whole idea of it. The whole idea is, do your ideas that are in your head can they actually work in a real world situation? And do you have to make compromises and shift what you believe because the actual world is different and doesn't necessarily fall exactly into your, cookie cutter or whatever non-nuanced vision of how the world operates? And so I think this is very important for people to take an interest in. And wow, a lot of people are talking a lot in the comments. That's fun. I'm glad. I'm glad that you guys are having these discussions in the comments, even if you disagree with me. Like, I'm totally fine with you having disagreements with me on storytelling. I'm still continuing to learn about storytelling. I do not know everything about storytelling, but there's a few things that I'm very, very, very sure about, and I have very good arguments for. And so, that's why I hold the ideas and opinions that I do about storytelling. And that's why I didn't want to wait years, and I didn't want to wait till I was 60 to talk about these concepts, because I feel like, I don't feel like they're talked about enough, and I wanted to be able to share them with, all of you who are writers and want to be better writers over time. So anyway, the next script is called Prisoner. Let me see if I can re-find. Okay. So this is Prisoner by Emmanuel Watilla. And let's take a look at this one. Let's see. So somebody asked, what if a story starts in a zone of discomfort? It's not about starting in a zone of comfort. Okay. If you start a story in a war zone, right? Boom, character in a war zone, chaos, destruction, death. This is still like, what we're seeing is the character's world. And then think about it as something changes, or the character makes an action that moves them into a different situation. For example, let's take this story of there's somebody in a massive war. They've been fighting this war, and then suddenly one day they get a letter that says, an enemy is going to attack their hometown or something. Now they have to race back and save their family. Boom. Now that's the unfamiliar situation. It's not about being comfortable. It's about the new thing that happens that separates the character from where they were before. Hopefully that makes sense. zoom in. I will zoom in for you lovely individuals. Hopefully that's better. All right. Okay. So, this is Prisoner. Over black, the sound of someone frantically trying to open something and then open on interior kitchen night. A drawer is suddenly violently pulled open, clashing the metal utensils inside. Pan up to reveal Sarah, who is breathing heavily. There, it opened. Interior bathroom continuous. Chris hastily rifles through a medicine cabinet looking for something while Sarah talks to him from the other room. Whew, that took a lot out of me. I swear, I need to get these cupboards fixed. Nothing works in this house. Chris finishes furtively adjusting an object. Furtively? Adverbs, man. Stephen King hates adverbs. You should read his book, Stephen King's book on writing. He's got some good stuff. One of his things is his hatred of adverbs. I don't hate him as much as he does, but it's just funny. It made me think of it because I don't really hear the word furtively every day. Anyways, Chris finishes furtively adjusting an object hidden behind the row of pill bottles in the medicine cabinet and exits. Interior kitchen continuous. Chris steps into the kitchen to come face to face with Sarah, but hopefully none of that will discourage you from staying here. Chris, smiling appreciatively. Thank you. Of course. Anything to help my brother out. Mikasa Sukasa. Sarah pulls a comically large spoon out from the open drawer. Now, is this the thing you've been looking everywhere for? No, but it's fine. I'll deal with it later. It's no big deal. Sarah nods and slides on her purse. Well, I'm going to run a couple of errands and get some stuff from the store. Want to come? We can grab a Coke like old times. Nah, I'm good. You sure? Yeah. Sarah gives Chris a disappointed look and begins to leave. Don't watch the news. They're always acting like it's the end of the world. Be careful while I'm gone. I'll be back in a few hours. Love you. You too. Aw, I meant you be careful too. Sarah fakes a laugh and shuts the door, leaving Chris all to himself. Chris's smile fades as he looks back at the drawer that's still pulled open. A dark seriousness overtakes him. Interior hallway later. The sound of water running. Thick shower mist hangs low on the ground beneath an ominous bathroom door as light from underneath the door spills out into the darkness of the hallway. Interior bathroom continuous. Chris, shirtless, splashes cold water in his face over the sink. He pads his face dry with a small hand towel and admires his reflection in the mirror, grinning widely. While grinning, Chris notices his eyes are unusually red and takes some eye drops. Once done, he looks back at his reflection, but now this time his expression has now become solemn. Jump cut to interior bathroom moments later. Chris pulls a shirt on, thus finishing getting dressed, and neatly combs his hair into place. He then goes to open the door, but to his surprise, the door doesn't open. Confused, Chris tries the door again, but the door remains locked. Crap. Chris begins to frantically shake the door. Sarah? Chris listens for a response, but hears nothing. Sarah? Sarah? Again, no response. Chris continues to rattle the door with all his might. Sarah? Sarah? Chris resorts to banging his hands loudly against the door. Hello? Hello? Help? Anybody? Chris makes a final bang and stops. Beat. He takes a moment to recollect himself and digs through the bathroom cupboards for something he can try and use to pry open the door. He finds an old metal wrench beside the toilet plumbing and rams it in between the door and the wall frame. Despite numerous attempts, the door doesn't budge. Tired, Chris drops the wrench back onto the ground. Interior bathroom later. In the other section of the two-part bathroom, Chris is sitting on the toilet, quietly waiting for Sarah to come back. He acknowledges a happy photo of him and his family from years ago hanging on the wall when his phone suddenly begins to ring from outside the bathroom. Chris jumps up onto his feet. My phone. Excited, Chris runs to the door and slips his mouth through the crack. Hey Siri, hey Siri. Insert cut. Chris's phone continues to ring at the edge of the kitchen table, ignoring Chris's cries. Sarah's calling him. Hey Siri, hey Siri, hey Siri. Insert cut. Chris's phone shuts off and the ringing stops. At the realization of this, Chris sighs and throws his back against the wall, exhausted. He takes a deep breath and looks back at the door, fresh with a new idea. He begins to charge towards the door when, bang, 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 Chris staggers backwards as loud gunshots sound in the near distance. Terrified, Chris stumbles onto the ground as a chaotic mixture of police sirens, car alarms, and screams erupt through the atmosphere. Smash cut to interior bathroom later. Chris is laid out on the ground in a cold sweat, terrorized by the noises that have since calmed down when he hears the front door open and someone come in. Chris quickly gets up and moves towards the door in relief. Sarah? No answer. Insert cut POV. We're moving down the hallway as if we're watching from the perspective of whoever's approaching the bathroom. Boards creak as we go along. Sarah, I'm locked in this dang bathroom. Help. I've been stuck in here for hours. What the hell is going on out there? The shadow of a strange figure stops before the bathroom door. Chris waits in anticipation for someone to speak, but instead we only begin to hear scratching against the door. Chris gulps. Sarah? Low, distinct growling, the kind of sound that makes your stomach turn. As the growls become increasingly vicious, Chris slowly steps away from the door and eyes the metal wrench on the ground. Cautious, Chris goes to grab the wrench off the ground when, screech, a grotesque green clawed hand jumps out from underneath the door and seizes Chris's hand. Chris screams and with the metal wrench smacks the bony hand of the creature. The creature, now hissing in pain, retracts its hands back outside, and Chris locks himself in the other part of the bathroom. In the other part of the bathroom, Chris jumps into the bathtub and shuts the curtains, hiding with the metal wrench clutched in his hands. He tries to control his breathing rate and listens carefully for the creature, his face now dripping with nervous sweat. He hears a scuttle-like noise coming from where his feet are, and to his terror, discovers a giant hairy spider crawling out from the drain. Chris grabs the shower curtain and before the spider can jump onto him, traps it and runs out of that part of the bathroom, locking the door behind him. Chris turns around to find the door in front of him shaking uncontrollably. The door unlocks, and just before the door bursts open, Chris passes out. Sarah rushes in and kneels before Chris's unconscious body. Interior dining room later. A Coca-Cola bottle that reads, "Share a Coke with Chris," sits on the kitchen table beside Chris's phone while Sarah is in the background talking on the phone. She's crying. Yeah, the neighbors called complaining about screaming. Interior bathroom flashback. Sarah finds a bottle of LSD disguised as medicine in the bathroom medicine cabinet. We can see Chris's unconscious body laid out on the couch. Sarah can't take the pain any longer and breaks down sobbing. Yeah, he did it again. Insert cut. Shot of the photo hanging in the bathroom of Chris. And shot of the photo hanging in the bathroom of Chris and his family smiling from years ago. I don't know if we'll ever escape. Title, Prisoner, roll in credits. Okay, it was alright. Let's see. Oh, he was high. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Breaking up action paragraphs is definitely something you should do. 1 second. I'm just trying to read back through your guys' comments for just a minute. A24 Studios. Yeah, A24 does make good films. I'm saying that they also make a lot of bad ones. And there's a lot of... they make a lot of what's the word? Pseudo-intelligent crap, I guess. But, yeah. It's really interesting because it feels like sometimes I feel stuck between this sort of diehard Marvel crowd who's like, these movies are so good. And you have this sort of like snobby film guy crowd that's like, A24 is so deep and interesting. But that's a whole tangent. Anyways, this script. So I think this is pretty fun. It's like a thriller. And again, I've talked about thrillers. Same thing with comedies. Like, they don't really need to deal with a philosophical conflict, mainly because they're supposed to be fun rides. Like, just like that, the script I read before this one was more of a fun, just like a fun comedy trope. Or they're just kind of going back and forth. Like, great. That's it. It works. It's fun. It's good. This is generally so okay. And for most of this story, and this is actually interesting because while more dramas or other genres struggle with having, they take so long to get started, or they don't have any philosophical conflict. A lot of thriller short scripts struggle with simply not having a good ending that actually kind of works well or ties up their idea, right? Like, I think it's fairly easy to make a thriller based upon not knowing all the facts, right? You're running for the monster, you're stuck in the place, the monster's coming for you. This is interesting, it's engaging, and it's fun. And the real mastery comes in being able to actually take that and put an actual interesting ending on the end of it that ties the story together in a satisfying way. And I really don't think this one does that. Like, we have this sort of like, oh, he was tripping on LSD, which, he's tripping on LSD. It's all in his head. This is the big thing. This is one of those, it was all in their mind the whole time scripts. And I would really recommend staying away from writing stuff like that, because it's just so lazy to me. Like, it just makes it so that you don't have to deal with any of the ideas that you introduce in a dream state or a heightened, trip, or being high and these sorts of things. I think it almost reads like I'm almost waiting for the screen to fade to black, and then it says, drugs kill, don't do drugs, or, LSD is bad and stuff. Like, I'm almost waiting for it to say that. So, not that you can't make a story about the dangers of drug use, because absolutely there are drugs that are very dangerous and addicting and all of these sorts of things. But this one was almost, it's like you sort of used this cop-out ending to explain this monster element and didn't give any sort of like actual satisfying ending to this, kind of thriller. Again, I'm going to talk about it again because I just felt like it works so well. The last live stream I did, there was that script. It was about the pizza guy trying to deliver, and he delivers to the house, and this woman has like killed the person inside. And at the end, they just, made it a loop where he's now calling a pizza place because he had to kill this woman. And he like starts the loop over again, and we cut to black. And I think that was just a fun way to end it, because it's just like trying to end like a comedy sketch. Like, sometimes it's like finding that like punch at the end. See, okay, the reason that dramas and stuff can have really satisfying endings that work really well, that are fairly at least easy to conceptualize, harder to write, but at least easy to conceptualize, is that like, really, you're just solving the philosophical question that the story has posed, and sort of like making a statement in the climax of the story about a certain philosophical conflict. So a character makes final actions, they beat the antagonist, and this says, because of this, the story has made this statement philosophically. And then with comedies or with thrillers, you don't have this, right? You have to find this sort of like way to end where, it's a lot more nuanced and I think hard to find, at least personally, to actually be satisfying, because you're not solving a philosophical conflict. You're trying to end a joke, or you're trying to end a sort of fearful or scary situation in a way that is interesting to the audience. So yeah, that's a big thing too, is part of it is somebody was saying that there should have been evidence of the LSD, and this is a great example. Actually, I think Lindsay Ellis, if you want to watch an interesting video about, so this is like Mad Max Lynn. Here, there it is. So this video is actually pretty interesting to watch if you want to take a look at it. Lindsay Ellis is talking about planning and payoff, and essentially how in Mad Max the story really sets up payoffs very, very well. And I think that is something that potentially this story could have done to make this ending work better, because this is not about solving a philosophical conflict. This is not about characters and beliefs. This is simply about creating a satisfying punch to the end of this sort of fearful story. Yeah, that's I think it's more fun. At this point I'm just spitball. I'm not going on off a concept, but because there is a way where you can make this whole drug thing work potentially, but I always hate having stuff be a dream or stuff be a trip or a vision or any of that. I would always avoid that. But I do think you could actually have the real monster in some way, that could potentially be interesting. Or flesh out what the monster is. It sort of feels like there is a monster. I think you could go deeper into giving this monster real characteristics that could actually make it feel more unique for your particular short script, rather than just being a generic feeling monster. So that's my opinion on that script. Now let's go find another one today. Take a shot every time Tyler mentions Story Circle. Yeah, you'd be getting really, really drunk, and you got to get used to it, because really, okay, so this is a big thing too, that somebody goes, thank God he didn't put up another Story Circle. So my thing is, and this is going to happen on my channel, and this is just how I'm going to operate, is that writing is not about learning 3,000 different techniques or concepts or these sorts of things. Writing is really about nailing a few very core fundamentals, right? Isn't it the whole, was it Bruce Lee or somebody that said, I don't fear the man who's learned 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. The idea being that mastery takes retreading core concepts. Mastery takes understanding core fundamentals of a concept or of an action or of a skill set. And so, by mastering these, few elements, by mastering structure, by mastering philosophical conflict, by mastering characters, you will be leagues ahead of so many other writers who just flounder and get mediocre feedback from their friends about changing a couple scenes, and have never really, really gone deep and studied and focused and written. And that's a big thing. People are not writing. This is part of the reason that I built the practical screenwriting course, was that people are not writing. They're not finishing. They're getting stuck in writer's block and procrastination and all these sorts of things, and they're not actually finishing. And finishing your screenplays are going to teach you more about writing than 300 screenwriting books are going to, because you start to understand where your mistakes are. This was the whole point of the course. It's getting you to finish and then showing you how to find your mistakes. That is going to change your life on how you understand story, because it stops being ethereal in this theory, and then it becomes, what do you do wrong specifically? What are your strengths as a writer? What are your weaknesses as a writer? What do you need to work on in your stories? And the more you can finish scripts and then examine how to fix those scripts, that is how you actually case study yourself and know yourself as a writer. So let's see if we can find another one here. Let's see. Okay. All right, let's try this one. So this one is called The Duck by Mohammed Zain. The logline is, during a hike, teenager Marion Holden accidentally injures a duck. The rest of that day, we'll see her go up against her reluctant, apprehensive family to save this duck and maybe even alter her life. Sounds like fun. So this is The Duck, written by Zane G. Not Mohammed Zain, excuse me. Okay. Here we are. I really need to get okay. Yeah. I feel like I need to get like a whole setup to like read chat while I do this. That's the hardest thing of this so far. I mean, I'm only 2 live streams in, but like keeping up with chat and then also focusing fully on reading these scripts is like a weird, it's like a constant battle. You know, I've gained so much respect for streamers after trying to do a couple of these. Like, you're really doing 7 things at the same time, trying to read chat, make sure your camera and audio is all working, and also do whatever you're doing. I'm not playing video games, but, you know, that would be funny. I'll start playing video games and then review the story content. We'll just play some story mode games, and then I'll critique them as we go through it. Anyways, this is the duck. Interior dining room, evening. A family of 4 are seated around a dining table, contently enjoy their meal on a typical night. This is so good. Well, there was no steak left at the butcher, so I got duck. To be honest, I thought you'd despise it. Nope, it's excellent. Thanks, Mom. Yeah, it's great. 9 a.m. tomorrow, don't forget. We have to be at the hiking trail early. Cut to exterior river day. It's the next day. The family are walking down a hike trail when they come across a gleaming river. Can we stay here for a while? I'm tired. Yeah, look. He points at some stones and pebbles laying not too far from them. They're soaked wet and glistening in the milky sunlight. We can skip them. Ooh, yeah. Maya follows the 2 kids who've immediately rushed off, and Jacob, the dad, has firmly planted himself on a huge stone to rest. So how does this work? Just hold the thing between your forefinger and thumb and flick your wrist. Marion follows these instructions and throws the stone. It bounces atop the water's surface. Hey, nice. The 2 interchange throws until they're both throwing at the same time. Look, we see a flock of ducks swimming in unison. The kids are still skipping when a shrewd, piercing scream escapes Marion's mouth. You idiot! Marion rapidly switching legs to stand on and panicking. Jacob's POV. Jacob is just joining his family and is witnessing the chaos. What's going on? Marion hit a duck. Marion. The ducks climb ashore not too far from the family. Marion runs over to it, and Alex isn't far behind her. The duck sits. Its leg is broken. Now what? We have to help it. We do? Marion reaches out to the bird and gently and carefully putting her hands on its chest and back, securing its wings against its own body. She cradles it to her chest. Honestly, I think we have to leave it. What? No. Just set her back in the water. It can't swim. The leg's broken. I'm carrying it. The 4 of them walk in a line. Oh, wait. You guys probably want me to zoom in again. Sorry. Where was I at? The 4 of them walk in a line and Marion's at the back. The duck's burrowed its head into its body and is seemingly asleep. She's admiring it when, honey, will you just put the duck down? She'll be fine. You don't know that. Look, it's not a big deal. When we get back to the car, we'll take her to like a vet or something. Does it really affect you? Yes. How? It's just a duck. That's not a reason. Okay, look, stop arguing and decide now if we're taking the duck or not, because I ain't listening to this for the rest of the walk. We're taking it. No, we're not. How about a vote? Yeah, that's fair. Well, I want to take it. Dad doesn't. What about you and Andrew? I don't. What, Andrew, do you want this duck brought along with us? I don't mind. Just pick yes or no so we can keep walking. Yeah, okay, bring it. That's 2 and 2. I don't care, I'm taking her. Jacob's annoyed with this, but they keep walking anyway. Cut to exterior parking lot day. The family has reached the end of the hike trail. That was fun. Marion is still nestling the duck, and it eventually wakes. She strokes its head to comfort it, and it remains calm in her arms. Andrew's on his phone, holding it up to the sky. I've got a bar again. On hearing this, Jacob gets his phone out too. We see him tap away We see him tap away at it until he approaches Marion. Give me the bird. No, come on, Dad. We're so close now. We can easily find a vet. $1,500. That's how much an emergency vet cost. I just Googled it. I'm not paying that kind of money for a bloody duck. If I hurled a rock into your shin, you'd go to the emergency room, right? I suppose. Well then. Marion, it's a duck. So? All right, that's it. Jacob reaches for the bird, and Marion turns around, shielding it from her father's grasp. Hey, what's happening now? Talk some sense into her, please. Jacob turns around and gets in the car. Maya approaches her daughter. What's up? I don't want to leave the duck. Why not? She's hurting. Marion, look, it's just one animal. You ate one of these yesterday. Marion, look, it's just one animal. You ate one of these yesterday. $1,500 is a lot of money, and we have a boiler to get fixed at home. Andrews left his backpack on the ground whilst he was using his phone, but is about to get in the car. Guys, come on. I'll pay. I'll pay for the vet and stuff. With what money? Marion doesn't know what to say. Maya turns and is about to get in the car. Andrew, your bag. Hey. Andrew, as he retrieves his bag. What? They're both stood at the trunk, and the parents are waiting in their seats. There's a moment of silence until... Mother... Marion's booted Andrew in the leg. What the hell's wrong with you? Shut up, you muppet. Listen, just say you tripped or something, please. Hell no, why would you? I'll owe you. Owe me a sprained ankle? You know my friend Mowery? Okay, good. Now just go in there and tell them you messed up your leg. Go. Interior, emergency room day. The four of them are sat in a row of chairs waiting to be seen by someone when a nurse walks into the area. Andrew Holden? I'll go with him. Andrew and Jacob get up. They walk up to the nurse. Andrew limps, and they're taken down a corridor to see a doctor. We stay with Maya and Marion. Marion still has the duck in her lap. I know you kicked Andrew. What? I saw it in the mirror. Why didn't you tell Dad? A member of hospital staff approaches the two. Miss, you can't have animals in here. Marion's struggling to get out words. This duck is injured, and we were hoping if it could be looked at. Is that at all possible? We have an emergency veterinarian here. Marion smiles at her mother. Is it okay if we go? Yeah, sure. Just follow the signs. My interior emergency room evening. Maya and Marion walk back into the emergency room to find Jacob and Andrew sat in some chairs. Andrew has a cast on his foot. Where the hell have you been? For a walk. What happened with brittle bones over here? It's just a bad sprain. It'll be fine soon. Come on, let's go. The family prepared to leave until, Ma'am, the emergency vet bill. What? He notices some form of bandaging on the duck's foot. Calm down. Thank you. They all walk out of the ER, and it's now dark out. Interior car evening. $1,200? Are you insane? And now I have to pay that. I'm sorry, but shut up. You know you always do this. You always mess up and then try to fix it using the stupidest methods. It's just a duck. You took Andrew to the ER when he hurt his foot. We have insurance for that kind of stuff. And you wouldn't pay even if you didn't? That's different. How? He's a guy, that's how. Look, I'm going to pay as much as I can anyway. I'll pick up an extra shift at the restaurant on weekends. I'll pay you back. You're damn right you will. You bloody ate a duck yesterday and you're cradling one as if your world revolves around it. Honey, calm down, all right? Let's go and get something to eat. Can we go to Manjaro's? Yeah, all right. Okay, so I want to pause here for a second because this story has created a small philosophical conflict here, right? You have Jacob who wants to get rid of this duck, who's just like, this is an animal, it doesn't matter. And then you also have Marion who wants to take care of this duck. And Jacob is pointing out to Marion that there's like a hypocrisy in her belief system, essentially. Because she ate duck the day before, but then she's also comparing Andrew to the duck, believing that they are on the same level and should be taken care of in the same way. So do you notice how those are beliefs? Jacob has a belief about people and what he would do because of those beliefs. He believes that animals and people are different and require different amounts of care. Marion has a different belief system. She believes that we should take care of animals, just as much as we take care of people. But there's also hypocrisy in her belief system because she ate a duck the day before. So while this is kind of a small example of a philosophical conflict, there is a philosophical conflict here in this story. And now we actually have... So now that we're almost to the end, and the reason I paused right here is because the story has essentially fully set up the 2 points of view in this philosophical conflict. We have Jacob's point of view: humans and animals should be taken care of in a different way, and we have Marion's point of view, which is we should take care of humans and animals in a very similar way, and this duck is very important. Jacob is attacking her belief system, saying that she's just being, sympathetic to this particular duck, but she doesn't actually hold this belief system because she just ate a duck the day before. So far, this is good. This is an interesting setup, or an interesting way to sort of not setup, but an interesting way to move through this story. And now we're nearing the end, and let's see if the story can tie this up. Because at this point, what this does is it involves the readers, us, in the philosophical conflict, right? Like, you as a person have some sort of idea on this philosophical conflict. Either you are very pro Marion's point of view, that we should, handle animals and people in a very similar way. We should take care of them in a very similar way. Or you may be more Jacob's point of view, that humans and animals are very, very different, and we don't really need to think about animals in that sense, and humans are significantly more important. So now, on some small level, our beliefs are now involved in this story. So let's see if they can finish it. So, interior restaurant night. The family walk into a small, homey restaurant and wait for their seats to be allocated. I would just switch that sentence up. It's a weird sentence. Jacob's still huffing and puffing. I think she has a point, Shut up with this duck shit. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I just want to eat and go home. Where's the duck? I left her in the car. She's asleep, so it's okay. Why do you want to help it so bad? Because she was suffering. Why wouldn't I? I don't get it. At dinner yesterday, you ate a duck. What's the difference? I guess there isn't. Well, at least I got something out of all this. I can only introduce the two of you. If she's still not into you, then that's not my problem. Yeah, I know. A waiter arrives. This is sort of I'll come back to it. The waiter arrives and takes the hold-ins to a table of 4. Give me a call when you're ready. Marion sits down and gets her phone out, plugs in her earphones, and waits for the menus to arrive. Andrew does the same, but by the time they do, they've both drifted off. I guess it was a long day. They always like the chicken. Just order 4. About 10 minutes later, the waiters bring 4 dishes to the table. Kids, he prods Marion and Andrew awake. They pick their heads up off the table and refresh themselves with a glass of water. What are we eating? What you always get. Perfect. Can you pass the salt, Marion? She does so, and then she looks down at the hunk of chicken sat in her plate, stares at it for a good few seconds. She momentarily reaches for a knife and fork, but we never see her grab them. She's hesitant to move and cut to black. Okay. So, this is a big thing that a lot of short films do. You took the easy way out, Zane. You took the easy way out. You made it so that you didn't have to choose and make a statement for the characters. Now, look, I really like what you've done in this story. You created some actual philosophical conflict. You created an actual, like, the dialogue in these scenes and the actions taken in these scenes actually related to the philosophical conflict. You had a certain level of continued narrative momentum. It wasn't like extremely, extremely snappy, but it doesn't have to be, because not every story has to be like a, fast-paced thriller. So you created, this slow progression of conflict, which is awesome. But at the end here, you took the easy way out. I think there's a version of this story where you just make her, you make her not eat the chicken, or maybe she does eat the chicken without thinking about it, right? You could even, the two simplest, most obvious ways you could take this story would be, one, Marion looks down at the chicken. She thinks. She doesn't eat the chicken. She looks up at her father, and her father is like, okay, I guess you win. You are, making your actions correlated to your belief, these new beliefs you now have, because she ate the duck before. So that's one way you go with it. Or we sort of like have this moment where we can shift to Jacob's point of view for a moment. He wakes the kids up. He tells them to eat the chicken. Marion just starts talking, whatever, doesn't think, and starts eating the chicken. Then we just sort of have this moment of satisfaction with Jacob where it's like he wins the philosophical conflict. Marion compromised on her new beliefs and showed that she was just feeling sad about this particular duck, but in her actions doesn't actually view this the same way. So those are the two most obvious ways. Now you could think more about that and think of a different way you could make that last scene happen. But even either of those options work. And it's not about like having the most like never before seen ending where we're so surprised about what happens. It's really like you set up the question of what's going to happen very well. You set up the idea of like whether or not you set up the question of what's going to happen. Like you create the desire to know the end in the story. So you don't have to have this like weird, crazy twist ending that's so surprising. All the audience wants at this point is to be satisfied with what you choose. They want to know, like, now that you have involved their belief system in the story, they want you to make a choice. The audience wants to walk out saying, oh yeah, like that was the choice, or they want to like honestly be upset about the direction that you go with it in, because then it gives them something to think about. And also, this is another thing where I talked about how like the difference between a philosophy book and a story is the idea that like we can actually get to see characters make decisions based, both on their beliefs and their emotions. We have this constant beliefs and emotions tug back and forth, and that's what creates, that's what makes stories so fascinating and wonderful, because we are not these sort of cerebral beings who are just analyzing all philosophical beliefs at all times. What we're doing is, we have emotions. We see the world in a particular way. We honestly feel what aligns with our emotions and what aligns with our belief systems. And so that's how, and I think you did that with Marion. You create like, she ate the duck before, she was like, food, great. And then she has this sort of like change in beliefs, but also like her change in beliefs is spurred on by her emotions. She feels sorry for this duck. She feels guilty because she hurt this duck. And that's a big thing too. You could really continue that guilt and because then you could go to the end of the script and say, does she not eat the chicken because she truly believes that animals and humans are the same? Or does she not eat the chicken because she feels guilty about hurting the duck? Because those are two very different things, and that's a very real human experience where people are making decisions not because they philosophically agree one way or another, but because they feel guilty, they feel ashamed, they feel pressured, all these sorts of feelings. And that's actually a way where you could continue this conversation on, like you could go to, she doesn't eat the chicken, and so now we have, or she doesn't eat the chicken, so now we have the next stage of this where it's like, is this really her new life? Or does Jacob come in and say, no, you just felt guilty one time about hurting a duck, and as soon as that fades, you're going to be right back to eating meat and not worrying about this, but you only worried about it when you could see it with your own eyes and where you were involved. That's the 25-page version of this story, where the climax of this short is the midpoint rather than the end of the story. So, yeah. Overall, dude, I really liked what you had there. That is, it's not a bad draft. I think you have something working there. I would definitely say switch up the ending though. Force the audience to choose. And force yourself to choose. Right. This is a big thing too. It's like while you are writing a story, I think like some of the greatest stories of all time were written by authors who were struggling with the concepts found in that story, right? So like if you're not sure about who's right in the story that you wrote, that's a great place to be, because now you get to think about what you believe. And when you are thinking about what you believe while writing a story, that's when you're in a really, really strong spot. That's when you know that what you're working on is actually interesting and could potentially be interesting for other people to read and watch and this sort of thing. So, but make the statement. Don't leave it ambiguous. Force your character to make a decision, and force yourself as the writer of the story to make a decision. So coming right up on 2 hours of the stream here. So I'm probably going to end pretty soon. I hope that this stream was helpful to you. I'm going to be streaming every Wednesday now, hopefully each Wednesday at noon Pacific time, which is like 3 p.m. if I'm not mistaken, Eastern time. That's when streams will be happening. I will be continuing to go through these scripts and hopefully also answering questions and talking with you guys more in chat and this sort of thing. And so, man, you guys, we're 2 for 2 on you guys having these long conversations about Inception. It happened last time, and it happened this time again. That last time was just because I was talking about dream sequences and how I hate them so much. But yeah, also another note is, generally speaking, I'm going to try to only read scripts that are like 15 pages and under, just because it's so, like if we get so long, it's just like, it gets harder and harder to like go through them one and then give like good feedback. And also just like keep this moving. I mean, at this point I just did 2 hours and only got through 4, and I have 157 unopened emails in this Gmail that's only built for you guys to send me scripts. If you ask me why I hate dream sequences, actually I'm making a video about this very soon. So in a couple weeks or whatever, that video will go up. But dream sequences are pretty much never good. I stand by this. And Inception isn't a dream sequence because it has stakes. It's just a part of the sci-fi. I'll talk about it. We'll talk. But anyways, do you need to attach a name? Not necessarily. I mean, but you can be anonymous. It's fine. But give me a logline. Give me kind of a reason to be like, oh, this is interesting. Because I do think on some level, on some level, like I'm not reading every single script that I'm going to be sent. The reality is I'm going to be looking at the ones that, are, correctly formatted, have a log line, are 15 pages or under. And I feel like, you guys can actually take something from, because I have been getting a lot of scripts that are not at all in script format, or are just very, very clearly somebody's like absolute first scripts. And I think that, ideally you're sending me your third, fourth, fifth, however many short script, rather than your absolute first one. Get a hang of the format, get a hang of sitting down and writing something, and then send me your third script, send me your fourth one, something like that, so that we can actually have a productive discussion about it, because I want to talk about the actual story and not be tripping over grammar or the fact that your story isn't formatted and these sorts of things. So, but yeah, 157. Yeah, 157 unopened emails here. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Thank you so much for watching. I really want to continue to make these valuable. So I am uploading the playbacks of these scripts, and or not of these scripts, but of these live streams. Also, if you have feedback for these live streams, leave it in the comments of the playback, because then it's easier for me to find them rather than trying to go back through the live chat. So, but I will always post these live streams. The last one is on my channel if you didn't watch it. This one will be on my channel. And September 9th, top link in the description, September 9th, I'm doing a major sale for the practical screenwriting course. The course helps you finish your screenplays, and it helps you rewrite them. And these are the things that are not being talked about in film school or in your screenwriting books, these sorts of things. You want to learn story theory, you want to learn story fundamentals, check out my YouTube channel, or check out, the big screenwriting books that are always talked about, Robert McKee's Story, Anatomy of a Screenplay by John Truby, these sorts of things. But if you want to finish your stories, you want to know how to rewrite them, check out the course, top link in the description. See you guys. Thank you guys so much.